Hi everyone, welcome to Difference Frames the World, a channel to find a real China. Today, before uploading episode 5 of Qin Gang's Answers to US Journalists, we want to repost a video published 18 months ago about China-US relations, which can still help viewers understand today's situation in China and the US. In less than 2 years, US lawmakers and militants have successfully worsened the relationship between the two nations, despite Biden's intent to mend America's relations with Beijing. Donald Trump is preparing for another election in 2024. If he succeeds, the two countries may face more challenges. Although Biden forgets things and is too weak as a president, he serves as a brake to avoid a direct clash between the nuclear powers. Biden had very good relationship with Beijing when he was the vice president to Obama from 2009 to 2017. And for sure he knows Beijing leaders better than Donald Trump. He might have already realized that it is impossible to curb the development of China now, and that is why he is positioning China as the biggest competitor and expresses his willingness to cooperate with China in the interests of the United States. We believe he has prepared himself for the peaceful rise of China as another superpower, and he knows that the United States has lost the last chance to encircle China when India and China started the disengagement and avoided a potential border fight like that of 1962. The military exercise of 2 aircraft carriers in the South China Sea in early 2021 was more like a live show to celebrate the Chinese New Year with China and its 1.4 billion people, instead of posing a substantial threat to China's sovereignty. Roosevelt aircraft carrier has been in the South China Sea for some time, but 3 of its shipmates have been diagnosed with asymptomatic COVID infections. It became the prey of COVID-19 again, 1 year after it was stricken with new coronavirus in 2020. The second round of outbreak will probably make it a moving coffin on the sea again, if not controlled well, just like last year, when more than 1,200 of its crew members were diagnosed with the new coronavirus. At that time, the carrier's Captain Crozier had asked the Pentagon for help, but no one cared, until it was exposed by the media, and the captain himself, who had saved all the sailors on that carrier, was dismissed by the U.S. Department of Defense for leaking information to the media. It seems the COVID-19 epidemic is more powerful than any bombers and missiles, and the U.S. Department of Defense is even more merciless than the COVID-19. We the U.S. politicians talk about human rights all the time. They need to learn how to treat its people and soldiers as human beings first, if the human rights in the United States are not for rich people only. Apart from this Roosevelt carrier that became ill, USS Ronald Reagan is stationed near Japan. Nimitz aircraft carrier just left South China Sea. A lot of people thought there might be a head-to-head conflict between these two countries, but as we mentioned before in other videos, we still maintain our judgment that Biden government will not have a head-to-head fight with China, as he needs help from Beijing to tackle problems for the US, and the relationship between China and the United States is on the way back to normal track. To avoid potential criticism for his showing cowardice to Beijing, Biden positions Russia as the biggest threat to the US again, and coerces his allies in Europe to prick Russia now and then. With Russia as the biggest enemy, he will face less reproaches from those American hawks, who just need an imaginary enemy to squeeze more money out of the pockets of US taxpayers. The show-off in the South China Sea also serves the same purpose. Even India saw through this trick and ceased to provoke China in the border area. However, this does not mean that China can ignore the presence of USS warships near its coastlines. With a history of over 5,000 years, China has been threatened by numerous enemies and has weathered through countless ordeals and hardships. In the 1960s, the former Soviet Union wanted to use Cuba as a springboard to threat the United States with its nuclear weapons, but it did not dare to assault China at that time, even after it was defeated by the Chinese army in Treasure Island when China was very weak due to economic difficulties and political turmoils. Having China as its enemy will be a nightmare for any nation in the world, and the most important reason is that 91.5% of its 1.4 billion nationals are Han people, or called Tang people outside China, while the other nationalities account for only 8.5% of its total population, according to 2010 census. Even if 2020 census may report a further percentage reduction of Han people by 0.1% due to birth control policy, the number of China's mainstream nationality is still bigger than the total population of Western developed countries like the US, Canada, France, the UK, Germany, Italy and Australia. Although the chance of having a war between the US and China is very low, the former US Secretary of State, 97-year-old Kissinger, suggested in 2020 that China should prepare for war while striving for peace. Kissinger, who was recently laid off by Donald Trump, called for resuming a window of communication with China as soon as possible. He also called for China to make serious preparations for war. This kind of appeal from a former US Secretary of State is really surprising and shocking to many people. For peace, we prepare for war. The militants in the United States must be made aware of the enormous costs that they would suffer in the event of a war between China and the United States, and a military conflict between the two countries could then be possibly prevented. Why is the United States so belligerent? It is because of its military hegemony. As of 2021, several military confrontations between China and the United States have occurred either near the South China Sea or near the Taiwan Strait. These military confrontations basically began with the United States taking the initiative and ended with China being forced to defend itself. But China's passive self-defense has made some Americans feel that military hegemony is an effective means of dealing with China. For the United States, the biggest problem is that China's rapid rise has threatened its position as the world leader. Unlike the unilateralism pursued by the United States, China's strategy of multilateral cooperation and common development has also gained the support of more and more America's traditional allies, and this made some U.S. politicians very nervous. The U.S. originally hoped to slow down China's development through its dominant position in science, technology, and economy, so China, like other U.S. allies, would become a part of the U.S. hegemonic economic system. But the failure of the U.S.-China trade disputes makes U.S. believe that China's development could not be limited by non-military means. This is because preventing the development of China is equivalent to preventing the development of U.S. allies and even some U.S. companies. Therefore, some Americans hope to start a new Cold War by complicating the situation in Taiwan and South China Sea, and even by means of direct military confrontation. In this way, under the influence of the new Cold War, the U.S. allies can only choose to stand aside and have to take their own economic development out of China's multilateral cooperation and common development, and then return to the U.S. hegemonic economic system. Why does the United States think this approach will work for China? Because the U.S. used this approach to destroy the former Soviet Union 30 years ago. And after the Cold War, those countries and regions that did not accept U.S. values and follow its rules have been ruined and destroyed by U.S. military troops, so the United States consider military power to be its greatest advantage over China. Why did Kissinger remind China of preparing itself for war? Because those Cold War veterans don't want a new Cold War again. Anyone with a common sense understands the very serious consequences of war between two nuclear powers. As a veteran who experienced the Cold War, Kissinger understands that a military confrontation between two big countries would bring many dangerous uncertainties to the world, and the consequences of these uncertainties will be unbearable even for the United States. Advocates of military toughness toward China, such as Pompeo, have not themselves experienced the horrors of the Cold War. For them, the Cold War ended with a victory over the former Soviet Union. They want to do the same to China. But China is not the former Soviet Union. China is not only a nuclear military power, it is also a peace-loving country, not as aggressive as the Russian communists. Kissinger knows that China is willing to resume peaceful diplomatic communications with the United States, so he takes the initiative to remind China, and at the same time, warn some of the militants in the United States that so-called New Cold War will do more harm than good to any country involved in the current globalization trend, and the same is true for the United States. Thank you so much for your continuous support. Your precious time with us is highly appreciated. We do our work as a mission, a cause. Please help us grow and reach more extensive audiences by forwarding our content to as many people as possible. We publish videos daily and post long videos on topics viewers are interested in once or twice a week. If you have not subscribed to our channel and turned on the notification bell, please do it now, so you will not miss our new content every day. If you want to support us, Please use the PayPal or Patreon link below, or scan the QR codes on the screen.